Amber Miller, all 1045 with Dr. John Luksch, sports medicine physician at Rothman Orthopaedics. And you're the guy when it comes to making sure everybody's like in good shape at the Philadelphia Marathon weekend. That official title is medical director. Welcome, Dr. Luksch.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Amber. Happy to be here.
So we're like a week and a half out from the big race weekend. What are your expert suggestions for all of us runners, myself included, what we should be thinking about heading into this next week and a half? Should we be slowing down? Should we be speeding up? Should we be resting? What's the official
So that's a great question. So first of all, thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Happy to be serving in this capacity as the medical director for the Philadelphia Marathon and all the fun that is to follow in a couple of weeks. So, as like you had said, we're about 10 days out. At this point, really the biggest things are in terms of training, we're going to start to pull back a little, right? You don't want to be constantly building up your mileage up to the day of the race, right? Like there's tons of easy to access marathon training guides that you can follow, which give good breakdown week by week as to how much mileage you should be doing and on which days. And, it shouldn't be more of a tempo or should be more of a steady pace, right? But with about 2 weeks and under to go, you're going to start pulling back. You're going to start decreasing your mileage. You're going to, start doing a little bit shorter runs, just so that you don't overstress the body as you prepare for race day. The other big important thing, right? Hydration and nutrition, right? So making sure you're staying hydrated as you get closer to race day. And if you're someone like myself who's not the greatest at drinking water throughout the day, just doing one extra glass the night before is probably not going to cut it. So, making sure hydration is good, making sure that your diet is good, that you're kind of building up some of your energy stores.
Is there any truth to the carb loading thing?
There is. You burn through all of your carbs first as your main energy source before you start going on to proteins and then fats. So, if you build up your carbohydrate stores, which are stored in the body as glycogen, right? Then, you'll burn through those predominantly during the race. So you don't have to start burning, more of your muscle tissue and more protein. So yeah, there is some truth to it. Now, like I wouldn't, overindulge on, some of the delicious pasta dishes that are available all throughout the city, but a healthy serving is not a bad way to go.
So, okay, so we're talking about starting to taper, which, by the way, who isn't a big fan of the taper phase? It's like,
yeah, right.
Okay, I'm so far from the finish line, but I'm so close. It's like,
exactly.
Months and months of training have all led up to this slight tick back in training, which we're all very big fans of. So that's important. The nutrition and hydration also very important in this week and a half, 2 weeks leading up to race weekend, Philadelphia Marathon weekend. Footwear, very important in your training, very important in race day. And that also goes for, socks and shoes. It can be cold, it can be rainy and all of those things, but shoes really important, and socks, no cotton is got to be the recommendation, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct. I mean, footwear for a runner, an endurance runner, like that's the tool of the trade, so making sure that you're wearing the right type of running shoe, which there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's not just, whatever was on sale or whatever looked nice. Although, like that stuff's important, right? You
my running shoes are ugly, honestly, but
but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not putting yourself at further risk of harm or injury or complications when you're out there running because you're in the wrong type of shoe. So I'll recommend for a lot of people that if you're uncertain when you commit to this kind of a process, go to a local running store. check out what their inventory is like, and talk to the people that work there. They're really knowledgeable about, the different brands, the different styles, like the characteristics of each shoe. Like, they'll have you go barefoot, walk around. They'll look to see, do you have a flat foot? Do you have a super high arch? Do you keep your arch, but you kind of roll your foot and ankle too much, when you're walking or taking a stride? And some of them will put you on a treadmill and watch how you run. Depending on how your foot lands and contacts the ground when you run, there's different shoes that might be better for you. Are you more of a true heel striker and then pushing off on your toes? Or do you land more on the front part of your foot? Do you land more on the midfoot? So, these are all things that you have to consider. And a lot of the specialty running places are really good about that. The other thing with footwear is making sure that, you're not wearing them out too much. I mean, the average running shoe has a lifespan of about 300 to 500 miles. So if you have a general idea as to where you're at, in terms of how many miles you've put on your shoe, it might be time to get a new pair. Especially if, you're noticing things like more pain in your ankles, your shins, your knees, towards the end of your runs. Your feet are really sore and achy. You're starting to get blisters, then that might be a signal or signals that, your shoes are nearing the end of the line. Conversely, like, I wouldn't jump into a new pair of shoes like the week before.
That was my next question.
Yeah. All right, well, sorry to steal the lead. But you want to make sure that you're breaking them in a little bit. Give them, time to get acclimated, because they can be firm and rigid and a little uncomfortable in the beginning before you get them worn just right to the shape of your foot and how you strike the ground.
Yeah, maybe you want to run a 5K in them before you run 26.2
exactly.
26.2 miles or a couple 5Ks. So registration for the 8K has been extended. So if you're like, you know what, I'm feeling good. I maybe wasn't exactly planning on doing this, but I am a runner and I've been, here and there. I love the 8K distance is sort of like a beginner distance. I think everybody sort of maybe starts with trying to run around the block the first time, but like this is for running a race. I think an 8K is a great place to start, and Rothman Orthopaedics sponsors the 8K. That registration is still open. So I want to encourage that for the Philadelphia Marathon weekend, and that takes place on the Saturday. So when you're at the tent on race days, what are the most common injuries or issues that you see? Because they're probably a bit different than the things that people are experiencing, during their training processes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you see a little bit of a variety, but probably the most common thing we see some cramping, right? We see people with some blisters and chafing, which, yep, that's as uncomfortable as it sounds. We'll see people who get, scrapes, cuts from slip and falls, or, somebody goes to step over, something that's on the course and collide with another runner. People, go down to the ground or they stumble. I mean, we've had people who have fallen and gotten sprains and fractures and, strained tendons and torn ligaments. So like, some of the traumatic type of stuff does happen. You don't really think about distance running as being a contact sport. But a lot of
people out there.
I mean, absolutely, but it happens. So we'll see things like that. From our standpoint, obviously, the biggest things that we worry about are, the runners who collapse either out there on the course or who collapse right after they cross the finish line. So there's medical personnel at various points along the course, not just when you get over the finish line. That's where our main medical tent is, but we have spotters and EMS and fire department all over the course, and our friends over at the Philadelphia Fire Department have a number of emergency personnel too, because when you're running for 13 or 26 miles, at a pretty brisk pace, your muscles are firing, your blood is pumping. You cross that finish line and you slow that pace down. Well, now they're not firing and contracting as much anymore, so a lot of that blood can kind of pool back down in your legs, and you get lightheaded, dizzy, and people can collapse. But they usually pop right back up. Like the biggest concern is the people who go down and stay down, which is why we have our emergency medical personnel there. And while that's not the most common, that's certainly the most concerning, but we are definitely, well equipped and ready to handle it. So,
I mean, it's an amazing race weekend. It really is. And the people
yeah,
of Philadelphia, if your training and your hydration and your nutrition
yeah,
haven't carried you through, it's like the people of Philadelphia will carry you through. In fact, wasn't it a few
really.
years ago, a handful of years ago, that at the finish line there was a viral video, I think, of people like literally like racers carrying somebody across
Oh
the
yeah.
finish line whose legs
Mhm.
just gave out
Yeah.
on them. And I think that that's definitely, the spirit of the race. Warm up, cool down. These things are all a little bit tricky on race day, particularly in the beginning when it's cold and you're corralled. Do you have any like, expert
Yeah.
tips?
So, definitely, you'll see people out on the course, as much as an hour or two before the race even begins, kind of doing their warm up, trying to get, the blood flowing, trying to get their muscles loosened up and stay stretched out. So doing a short run, up and down the parkway, before you have to get, grouped with your corral is a good way to do that. Cool down after. Um, you don't think about like, oh, I just ran 26 miles. Like, let me cool down. But I think the best thing is, number one, keep moving. Once you cross that finish line, the temptation is going to be to stop and come to just kind of like a brisk walk, put your hands on your hips or over your head, but keep moving, right? If you are going to slow down to like a light jog or a brisk walk. Keep moving for that first 10-15 minutes, walk through, the immediate area after the finish line, grab a banana, grab one of those, nice foily space blankets, and lock the heat in. But definitely then also too, keep going up and down the parkway a little bit, keep that blood pumping, and don't let everything get real static and tense right after. And then go celebrate with your friends and your family and a couple thousand of your buddies who happen
Right,
to
right.
roam the
Last
streets of Philadelphia with you.
last year, I had a whole bunch of friends and we went to a concert that night, and you think, oh, that sounds crazy, but it was great because we were up on our feet and we were moving and we were
Yeah,
dancing. I feel like that actually aided in the
of
recovery
course.
after the
I'm sure
race.
it did.
When it
I'm sure it did.
comes to methods of recovery post race, be it 8K,
Yeah.
13.1, or the full
Yeah.
26.2, where do you rank things like heat, ice, rest, anti-inflammatories, beer, cheeseburgers, liquor?
Well, if we were just going on desire alone, then the cheeseburger and milkshake would be handed to everybody as they cross the finish line. But that's probably not the best thing for the body after depleting all of your stores and putting all that stress. So, so definitely having some kind of refreshment that will replenish your carbs. So whether it's a sports drink, water with electrolyte supplement, you know, something like that. I mean, you get a beer and pretzel when you get to the finish area. I mean, this is Philadelphia, so
Right. You
soft
got to make it a full
pretzel, soft
experience.
pretzel is carbs. A lager can
Doctor's
actually be a
orders.
pretty good recovery drink. But and like I said, immediately after, keep moving for that first 10-15 minutes. Definitely stretch out. Some people will take a nap that afternoon just to kind of you know um, kind of get their energy levels back up, give their body a chance to rest. You're going to be sore. I mean, 26 miles, 13 miles, regardless of whether you're doing the full or the half, it's a pretty, challenging physical feat to do. So you're going to be sore afterwards. The inclination is, oh, I'll just take like, a couple ibuprofen, walk it off, I'll be fine. You know, it's broken down by your kidneys. You just kind of, ran all over the city and might be slightly dehydrated. So, you know, ibuprofen or some kind of anti-inflammatory is probably not the best if you are having some pain. If anything, Tylenol, because it's broken down more by your liver. So as long as you're, able to keep up the hydration, Tylenol probably more for pain and any of those lingering like muscle aches. Some people will do the cold tub plunge when they get home. Some people want to put, like a hot shower, hot bath. Um, it, Either one really. I don't know that there's necessarily a dramatic, difference in terms of the benefit of one over the other. There was at one time a prevailing thought that everybody should do like a cold plunge tub, which if you're overheating out there on the course, and yes, even though it could be in the high 40s or low 50s in terms of the temperature, you can still have heat related illness and injury during a marathon. Then dunking you in a cold ice bath to get your body temperature down is appropriate. But in terms of the recovery after, if you want to do a hot shower, hot bath, or you want to do a cold tub plunge, either one is fine.
So not ibuprofen, Tylenol.
Tylenol. Yep,
Beer and
Tylenol.
a pretzel, cold
Which
plunge.
gets a bad rap because it's not an anti-inflammatory. But as long as you're not chasing it with the beer, then you're good.
Yep. That's right. I
Yeah.
want to take it back really quick because
Sure.
it's been a long training season, for everybody who's doing it the right way. If at some point during that you're experiencing a setback, a pain, injury, that sort of thing, at what point do you go, okay, this is maybe more serious than just a couple of days off. I should go and make an appointment with somebody like you with Rothman Orthopaedics.
Yeah. So that's a great question. And it's interesting because a lot of times you feel an ache, you feel a pain, you twinge, maybe you strained something, maybe you overdid it, you give it a day or two, you go back and you're good. It's more those instances where you give it a day or two to rest, or you decrease your mileage, or you decrease your pace, and it's not necessarily any better or different, right? Then you might want to start thinking, okay, is something more at play here, especially if you've had a history of prior injury to that area, especially if you've had prior history of things like stress fractures, which are certainly, a big concern in somebody who does, a repetitive impact activity like endurance and distance running. Then you probably are doing yourself a disservice by
Pushing through.
letting it linger. Yeah, letting it linger.
Yeah.
It's better to err on the side of caution and get something looked at, because minor things, if you get them while they're still minor, are a little easier to manage than minor things that become bigger things. And I've had to tell runners on numerous occasions, with what you have going on, there's not enough time for it to recover and you to get back, to the same level of fitness or same point in your training to be able to participate. Or, conversely, I've had, yeah, you have this, but, we're at a period of time where, if you do X, Y, and Z, you can get back on track and still be able to participate. Maybe it's not going to be the PR they were aiming for, or, the same, timing or distance or pace or whatever that they were hoping to, but they can still participate. They can still finish the race, which ultimately that's the goal, right? From our side, we want everybody who's participating to have a great time, enjoy the experience, get across the finish line, but do it safely.
Yeah, you're doing yourself no favors if you're down and out then for way too long and
Correct.
can't start thinking about those spring races. But our focus is fully on the Philadelphia Marathon weekend. Right? Yeah, right. That's right. Philadelphia Marathon weekend is this close. Registration still open for the Rothman 8K. So many good tidbits. And if we want to hit you up or find you or get more information, RothmanOrtho.com, at Rothman Ortho on all of the socials. And Dr. Luksch, if we are so grateful for you, and we're so grateful that you and your whole team will be looking out for us on race days on Philadelphia Marathon weekend, both the Saturday and the Sunday. I tried to sign up for the kids run, they wouldn't let me. Thank you so much for your time. Such great insight.
It's my pleasure.
We really appreciate
it. Thank you so much for having me.
And let's hope for good weather and a healthy, fun run for everybody. Good luck, racers.